Welcome, welcome. My name is Anna Dearman-Kornick, your host and time management coach for the day. As head of community at Clockwise, I am thrilled to welcome you into the Clockwise community. Today, I'm here to be your guide and to cheer you on as you recharge, reset, and get energized at Clockwise Halftime. So as you're making your way, welcome again. I'm so excited that you've carved out this time to dedicate to recharge, re-energizing, and resetting during this halftime of the year. We'll get started in just a minute as we give everybody a chance to join us, but we're so thrilled that you're here. And again, my name is Anna Dearman-Kornick. I'm your host for the day, your time management coach, your head of community, and I'm so thrilled to welcome you into the Clockwise community. And as we are officially preparing to dive into what's ahead of us for the day, let me show you around. Let me give you a tour of our playing field, if you will. So where you see me right now, this is our stage. And over on the right side of the screen, you'll see two tabs called Event and Stage. The Stage tab, that's where the action is. That's where you'll find the chat box. So, it's always important to do a warm up and practice before you get in the big game. So let's do a quick warm up with the chat box. Take this time to hop over to the Stage tab, find the chat box, and once you've got it open, let us know where you're joining from today. We've got people joining us from all over the United States and all over the world, and we're so excited to welcome you here today to Clockwise Halftime. In addition to the chat, be on the lookout for a few polls to pop up throughout the day. We would love to hear from you and learn from you. All right. Now that we're all on the same page, here's our agenda for the day. First, Clockwise CEO Matt Martin will kick things off for us. Next, you'll get an insider's look at some never-before-seen, soon-to-launch Clockwise product updates from our VP of Engineering, Dan Kador. Then, we've assembled an all-star team for an expert panel discussion on what it means to reset your priorities, operations, and culture at the midpoint of the year. After that, if you've signed up for a breakout session, we'll huddle up for coaching to help you clarify your next steps. Then, to wrap it all up, we'll head back here to the main stage to finalize our action items and make sure we've got some accountability built in before we get back in the game. Does that sound good to you? If you're up for that agenda and you're ready to get in the game, put the word game in the chat box and let me know. Who's ready to get in the game? Put the word game in the chat box. And speaking of the game, just like every good manager has a strategy, every good coach has a playbook. Your halftime playbook was sent straight to you in your VIP box, or you should have received a PDF download. Christy, who's over in the chat, Christy from Clockwise, she'll share a link to the PDF in the chat in case you need to grab it so you can follow along. And if you don't have a playbook handy, no worries. Just make sure you've got something to take notes because you'll want to capture all of your big ideas and next steps from today. All right. With that, let's get in the game. Join me in welcoming Clockwise CEO Matt Martin.
Thanks so much, Anna. And welcome everybody to Clockwise Halftime. We're so excited to have you. As you may know, we think a lot about time at Clockwise. We're on a mission to help the world make time for what matters. And that includes making time to reflect, recharge, and intentionally re-energize your team. So right now it's June. We're a little bit more than halfway through the year. We've got 6 months to look back on, and we have 6 months to look forward to before the final buzzer sounds on 2022. And you can think of this like halftime. And what happens during halftime? Both teams pause, they rest, and they reflect on what they've accomplished so far. And then importantly, they adjust their strategy in order to finish strong. And that's what we want to do here together at Clockwise Halftime. In a world that's constantly moving and telling you to hustle, to work longer hours, And just to keep going, we've created a space for you to pause, to take a break and thoughtfully consider how you'll approach the rest of the year. To put this into practice, today will center around how to approach resetting and recharging across 3 different areas. So first, priorities, how to think about time. Second, operations. And third, culture. And as we press forward into the next 6 months of 2022, we may not know what lies ahead. In fact, if the past 2 months are any indicator, we can be certain that we don't know what lies ahead. Unpredictability has become the norm, and volatility in the public markets are no doubt affecting every aspect of your businesses. Maybe your resources are limited. Maybe your team's just stretched thin. And at Clockwise, that's what we think about. How to energize your team, how to make sure that your team is using their time most effectively. Because we believe at Clockwise that time is a shared resource. It's collective. And therefore, we have to solve it together. So I want to thank you for being here, but even more, I want to commend you for carving out this time. I know how busy our days can get, and that it can be all too difficult to find the time we need to invest in ourselves. But that's what separates a great manager from the good ones. Good technical managers know the importance of being there for their team and investing in their team, but great technical managers know that to lead your team well, you've got to invest in yourself. It's not a luxury, even though it feels like that. It is a necessity. And so today at Clockwise Halftime, this is your time. To our time to pause, to reflect, to recharge, and reset so we can re-energize our teams and finish 2022 strong. Thanks again, everyone, for being here, and let's jump in.
Awesome. Matt, thank you so much. And next, we're thrilled to share a bit of our product vision, some of our recent launches, and some exciting developments on our roadmap. And with that, I'll hand it over to Dan Kador, our VP of Engineering. Take it away, Dan.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. Welcome, everybody. Super happy to be here. I'm pumped for you to see some of what we've recently delivered and what's on the road ahead on our journey to help you, your technical teams, and your organizations really make time for what matters. Our mission that Matt shared ties directly to our philosophy on how we build products here at Clockwise. Stated simply, our philosophy is to help organizations achieve ambitious goals by creating time for important work and preventing burnout. And this is even more meaningful and top of mind for us given current market conditions. I don't know about any of you, but for me in these uncertain times, I find it even more critical than usual that my teams are spending their time on what truly matters. So now let's jump in to the latest and greatest Clockwise features that help here. So, the Sunday scaries, they're real. I think we need to advance the slide. Perfect. The Sunday scaries are real. We've heard that customers, especially tech teams with lots of meetings like sprint syncs, stand-ups, product reviews, and more, often feel overbooked or overwhelmed by their calendar. And it's not only common, but actually really stressful to be double or triple booked throughout the day or week. So that's why we're super excited to announce our newest feature, conflict notifications. This feature is designed to help you and your team get ahead of and resolve tough conflicts. These notifications are triggered when Clockwise finds a conflict that we can't resolve automatically. Then we surface these conflicts right in Slack or email, the Clockwise sidebar, and we prompt you to view or reschedule them. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see a quick demo of the feature in action. In this example, this person has a conflict between their weekly product review session, which is not flexible, and a user research session, which is flexible. Clockwise clearly highlights the conflict and automatically suggests better times. And in a couple clicks, the conflict is resolved. Next up, scheduling. No one enjoys trying to find time to meet with other people, especially folks who have lots of meetings and commitments, and especially when it cuts into your other work. So we built Clockwise links, which I'm super proud of. Just set your preference, share your link, then let us handle the rest, and we'll find you the best time to meet. We take all of your preferences and all of your optimized schedules, and we take that into account to offer the best times to meet. This way, you can avoid the back and forth, balance the trade-offs between your scheduling preferences and your availability, all without the stress. And we protect your focus time so you can stay in the flow without being disrupted. Plus, we've released a couple additional features to make links even more powerful. First is a copy best times widget. Sometimes you're going to want to prefer to send the meeting times that work best for you in an email, like when you're following up with a high priority candidate or scheduling a UX research interview. What we'll do is Clockwise will generate the best time for you with one click instead of having to spend time eyeballing your availability yourself. Then you just copy and paste these best times into an email, a Slack, or a chat. We also recently launched a reschedule flow, so you can reschedule a meeting booked with Clockwise. Rescheduling a Clockwise Links meeting will also trigger an automatic email notification to keep the other attendee informed. Now, that's all great. Super proud of that. On to the best part. What's coming next? Remember, as we share our plans here, please note exact timing and details are yet to be finalized. And if you have any feedback on these upcoming features, we'd love to hear from you, me in particular. So let us know. For quick context, we built and designed our roadmap around to deliver value across 5 key themes. These are based on core customer needs. First is maximizing time for priority work. Second is automating calendar management. Third is simplifying your team's scheduling. Fourth is integrating with your team's workflow. And fifth, and potentially most important for us, is keeping security at the forefront. So framing our roadmap around these themes help us maintain our orientation around creating more time and preventing burnout for teams and organizations. So we all know, myself included, it's challenging to maintain a consistent cadence for a set of meetings like one-on-ones or team stand-ups due to availability and conflicts that pop up. However, we all know that consistency is important for really staying connected and in sync with your team, especially when we can't be in person as much as we'd like. So one missed or moved stand-up could impact the scoping or ship timing on a project. What we've done is we've now given you even finer control over how your flexible meetings move. So now you have the ability to mark which days you'd like a flexible meeting to move. For example, you could say Tuesday or Thursday, right in Google Calendar. So if you just want your team stand-up to move between that Tuesday and Thursday, we'll handle that for you. We also recognize that finding the best time for a group meeting with external attendees is really tough. The more attendees there are, the harder it is to avoid the back and forth, to manage the trade-offs, and really just avoid disrupting other meetings and other people's flow time. So we're pleased to announce that group scheduling is coming soon for Clockwise Links. This is going to be great. With this feature, you'll be able to find the best time to meet among multiple attendees. So look for that. And next up, we know there's a need for Clockwise beyond Google Calendar. Microsoft users deserve a schedule they love just as much as Google users do. So opening up Clockwise beyond Google is in the works, and we're actively building out a beta experience for M365. My ask is, if you have friends or former colleagues at a company that use M365, we would love to connect with them. We'll have more details to share soon, so stay tuned for updates from us. And that's really just a quick look at the state of product at Clockwise. We feel really great about where we are, what's to come, and we really look forward to creating even more time and balance for you and for your teams. So as I mentioned, if you have product feedback or questions, our team is super happy to chat more. Throw it in chat here, hit us up at beta@getclockwise.com, talk to anybody here. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks all. Anna, you're muted. Anna, I don't know if you can, you're muted, sorry.
There we go. Thanks, Dan. Thanks so much also for letting me know that I was muted. So I'm so excited about all of these updates, and I want to hear from you. Let me know in the chat which of these updates you're most excited about. The conflict notifications, the group scheduling, Clockwise for Microsoft. Let us know what has got you excited about what's to come for Clockwise. And next up on the agenda is our expert panel discussion all about how to recharge your winning team. As Matt said, this is an ideal time to recalibrate your team's priorities, operations, and cultures. It's more important than ever before to be smart and nimble as you lay out your plans for the future and take action. That's why we've assembled a panel of experts who specialize and excel in each of those three areas. They have the experience and the expertise, and we're fortunate to have them here with us today to share what they've learned and how they've led their teams. So listen up and be inspired as you're thinking through how you can recharge your winning team. Let me tell you a little bit about each of our expert panelists that we have with us today. First up is Ryan Atkins, VP of Engineering Operations at Asana. Ryan has built his career in tech, helping engineering organizations at Asana, Stripe, and Dropbox scale by building engineering programs, systems, processing, and tooling to improve effectiveness, efficiency, and engagement. He is currently head of engineering operations at Asana. Next up is Wade Chambers. Wade oversees all aspects of engineering and technology innovation at Included Health. With more than 25 years of engineering leadership experience, he has deep technical domain expertise and a successful track record of scaling teams and leaders, market-defining technology innovations, and business growth for companies of all sizes, including Twitter, Telepart, Yahoo, and Opsware. Before Silicon Valley, Wade served in the military and the White House Situation Room. And finally, our last panelist is Vicki Thomas. Vicki is the VP of Product at Clockwise, where she leads product management, product design, brand design, and user research. Prior to Clockwise, she built products and product teams at Adobe, Lucid Software, Vivint Smart Home, and Rivet. She is a passionate advocate for STEM education and inclusivity in tech, and is a longtime volunteer for FIRST Robotics and her alma mater, MIT. And if you're wondering, yes, there will be time set aside for Q&A at the end of our panel discussion. We'll hold all questions until the Q&A segment. But if you have a question for all or one of our panelists, go ahead and pop it in the chat box, and Christy will be on the lookout. And if you can start your question with a capital Q, that'll help her spot them. Christy, can you give us an example of starting a question with a capital Q? All right, here we go. Priorities, operations, and culture. Let's dive in with our first question, shall we? Yesterday marked the first day of summer in the US. It's common for people to take time off, and a lot of business activities tend to slow down. This midpoint of the year can serve as an ideal time to reflect on the past 6 months and reset priorities for the remainder of the year. But this year feels even more critical given we seem to be entering the post-COVID era and into increased economic uncertainty. So we'd love to know, how are each of you thinking about what it means to reset given the current state of the world? And I would love to kick it off with Ryan.
Thanks so much, Anna. First of all, I really appreciate you having me on here. I'm sort of chuckling to myself thinking about reset and having a time to sort of slow down. And I do generally feel that in my calendar year, May and June typically are this nice sort of halftime refreshment sort of period. But of course, given all the things that are happening in the world, sort of emerging post-COVID, dealing with new macroeconomic challenges, it feels like, you know, things are moving just as fast as ever. But some of the things that I like to do during this phase of time is really carve out and protect some time for myself, my own focus time, so that I can reset my own priorities. And this has been extra important. I think the economy has changed so much in the last 6-8 weeks that it actually happened at a pretty good time of the year, considering the way that, at least at Asana, we sort of operate throughout our calendar, and that it gives us a chance to really refocus and reset heading into H2. To kind of re-examine our plans. But for me, that means really carving out dedicated time where I can focus, write, and think more about kind of long-term strategy, which is very different from the day-to-day kind of putting out fires left and right.
Awesome. Ryan, thanks so much. So for you, reset is about that personal reset to make sure that you can bring your best to any adapting that is on the horizon. That's great.
Definitely.
So Vicky, tell us a little bit about what it means to you to reset.
Yeah, thanks. I love what Ryan said about consciously dedicating the time, because for me, that's a really important part of resetting. You can't reset if you're just in the day-to-day dealing with the next Slack notification. So resetting means really consciously taking that time and reflecting to make sure that that myself and that my whole team are still focused on the most important things, but based on what we know right now, not what we knew back in January when we laid out the plan for the year. So it's all about really making sure we're focused on the most important things, making sure that we're in charge of our to-do lists, not the other way around. We're not on the runaway train of ever expanding to-do lists. And I think it's also a fresh start and opportunity to purge the things that aren't really impactful. Do a little summer cleaning of my calendar, my to-do list, the team's priorities, get rid of things that don't spark joy or have impact, Marie Kondo style. And then lastly, I think it's also a really good opportunity to think about taking some time, some personal time for yourself and for your team, and encouraging your team to do the same. And it's important to actually take that time so you have the time to recharge and come back re-energized for what's ahead.
Awesome. Great points, Vicky. And I love that you mentioned Marie Kondo, because you're right. What are those things that we're doing that we should stop because they're not sparking joy, they're not effective, but also making sure that you're taking time to really rest so that your energy has an opportunity to replenish so you're able to rock and roll through the rest of the year. Thank you. So now, Wade, I would love to hear from you about your perspective on reset.
Yeah, for me, it always starts with reconnecting with purpose. It's making sure that the reason I show up at every day at work, I'm clear about that and what that means, as well as then aligning my priorities and my structure of my calendar with the work that I need to get done that week. So if I can reconnect to purpose and then make sure that I've structured my week appropriately to act on that, it all kind of comes together for me.
Awesome. So reset for you is reconnecting with that purpose to make sure that your actions are aligned with that purpose, very purpose driven. I love that. That's great. And Wade, I'm going to put you on the spot again because this question is for you and it focuses on priorities. You know, at this point, we are certainly no strangers to life throwing us curveballs. And very often those curveballs require us to rethink how we prioritize our time and our company's efforts. Can you give us an example of how you've shifted your technical team's time to adapt to changing circumstances?
What an appropriate question. It seems like both the rate of change and the complexity of change are just accelerating. And as I reflect on it, shifting a team's time to adapt is always a human problem, never a technical problem, which brings up an interesting tension point in all of this, in that with people, you have to focus on being effective, not efficient. With computers, you can focus on being efficient, but not with people and teams of people. And that effectiveness for me has always depended on three things. Trust, the degree of it in which you have it, priorities, or actually, maybe I should say more importantly, like clarity. Like I want to have clarity on both my priorities and how we're going to achieve it and those sort of things. And then number three is the degree of influence that you have and what you're focused on with that influence. And if I think about the last year, we've had some really big challenges in my world, in that we merged with an equal size company. And so we had two different teams, exactly the same size, slightly different cultures, different processes, different leadership styles, even different roadmaps. And like we, without any of those common things, had to figure out like how we were going to move forward. And so I very clearly had to focus on, first, let's make sure that we're building trust with people I don't know and I don't have any experience with. Second, establishing clarity about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're going to do it. And then work on my ability to influence key leaders inside of the team through those changes. Also, another example in a slightly different way is as a result of that merger and evolving market conditions, we needed to evolve the product strategy for a key product. Again, trust, clarity, influence. I need to make sure that we worked on some of these things during the integration, like coming and focusing on a specific project. Same things popped up regularly. It's like, is there a sense of trust between the various leaders and what we're trying to accomplish? Is there clarity on the why behind it and how we're going to move through that? And then my ability to sort of break up the resistance and help people move through that required a lot of influence as we move through it. And so I'd love to, and like I was thinking yesterday, we were talking about hackathons. Same things came up. It's just the degree in which you have trust and clarity and influence. Things just move much, much faster and with purpose inside of that. I think it's really important to tease those three things apart, though. If you think about each one of these, it's not, do I have an example of where I've done it once? It's more of, have I invested the time to truly become great at it or good at it? Almost to the point of, can I get to approximating perfection? You want that sense of really diving in and being able to understand each one of these. So if you think about trust, I love the trust equation that's out there. When you talk about credibility, reliability, and intimacy over the degree of self-orientation. From a credibility, do I believe you, and how believable are you to others? From a reliability, how close is your say-do ratio? Are you going to do consistently what you've said you're going to do? Intimacy, or the degree of connection, right, is how safe are people sharing with you? All of those things, like if you think about each one of them, it might be like, connection, I don't need that. But like the truth is, the more that people can connect to you and are able to sort of share their concerns or where they're at, it allows for the right things to come out and for you to work through them quickly. Now, if you think about all of those things, the thing that divides them is the degree of self-orientation. Who benefits from your actions? Is it the team? Is it the company? Is it your users, right? And you could have credibility, reliability, and intimacy, but if you're doing it all for your own self motivations or objectives, right, it kind of undermines everything else that you've done. On the clarity side, that's probably pretty clear, but are the priorities clear? Are they convenient to revisit? Is the strategy for getting to success clear? Have you involved the right leaders and have they internalized it? Is there a credible plan, next steps? Everyone understands their part. Is it clear how you're going to measure success as well as how you measure progress? And then on the last piece, influence. I think the question that I ask myself constantly is, do others actively change as a direct result of purposeful actions on your part? Right. And the more that you can think through, I need to walk the talk. I need a compelling vision. I need to demonstrate genuine concern for others. I mean, you might need to challenge other people to get them to see a new truth, but I need to do so in a way that validates their opinions and ideas while inviting them to see something new. I think the cool part about all of these is that there are things under your power to improve. You don't have to wait for somebody else to change or the environment to change for you to be able to actively work on each one of these. And I would say that, just wrapping it up is, I don't think that these are sometimes foods, right? These are not something that you do every once in a while. They're constant things that you want to focus on. And they're very portable skills that will make a huge difference in your career moving forward.
Wow, Wade, thank you so much for all of those insights. I've definitely written down trust, clarity, and influence in my Clockwise playbook. And you all have a page in your playbook to capture your notes from the panel discussion if you want to keep them organized in that way. But now let's move on to our next question. And this question is going out to Ryan. We're going to shift over to Ryan for an operations question. So, changing priorities often requires adapting at the organizational level. Would you start out by telling us what operations means from your perspective? And then how can we evolve our operational priorities and practices while still leading a united team?
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. I think to me, operations really is sort of the set of programs, processes, systems, even cultural norms and rituals that exist across an organization. And I like to think in terms of sort of maybe three branches of that. One is at the individual level. I work within engineering, so thinking a lot about an individual engineer's workflow and what are the set of like ways in which they operate to deliver their work, but also at the team level. So how do teams engage? What are the roles and responsibilities? How does the team determine its purpose and strategy? And then at the organizational level, what are the operational operating cadences, the norms, the communication standards that an organization uses? And I think to kind of dig into the question a little bit on evolving this over time, like I'll draft off of Wade's framework of trust and clarity and influence, really around that level of trust. And one of the things that I think about in an evolving and scaling organization like Asana Engineering and its growth over time is thinking about the value of standardization versus agility and customization at the team and organizational level. And I think when you're dealing with the sort of crisis du jour, whatever it may be, of the economy or COVID, and the set of change that people have to deal with, especially when it is out of their control, thinking about how you empower people to make more local decisions and you trust them, you really like dig into, use that trust equation, but at an organizational level. So this might mean holding off on some implementation of standards, whether it's introducing a new tool or spinning up a new process. You might pause on some of those, efficiency gains that you might get from standardizing things and allow people to have a little bit more control at the local level. Let them be the first line of decision making, be a little bit less top down in these times, and enable people to have a little bit more control over the things that they can control and how they operate. The other thing I wanted to add really quickly is I think a lot of people use operations as sort of a foil to strategy. Like operations is on the execution side of things, but operations has a strategy in itself, and making the decisions that you make possibly as a leader of your function organization about what you do, what systems and tools you roll out, how you communicate. All operationalizing those types of strategies is very critically important, especially when you're handling a lot of change that's happening in our world every day. And so I feel like that's really useful to keep in mind. Yeah, I'll stop there. Thanks.
Ryan, thanks so much. That was awesome. And I love the reminder that operations and strategy really do have an intersection. So thanks so much for that. And this question is now for Vicky, and it focuses on culture. All right, Vicky. Many believe that a company is only as strong as its culture. During economically volatile times, what can we do to reset and reinvigorate our teams and increase productivity and efficiency without sacrificing cultural touchstones and rituals?
Thanks, Anna. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about and to personally invest in my career and my communities. So I'm so happy to talk about it. There are a few different things I want to touch on here. First of all, part of resetting in the middle of the year or anytime really is absolutely to make sure that things are running efficiently on your team. And especially when many of us are being asked to take a close look at our budgets and trim costs while still chasing that never-ending to-do list I talked about earlier, it can absolutely be tempting to think of investments in culture as a nice to have. But culture absolutely cannot be a casualty. It's kind of like watering a plant. You may not notice going a day or two without water, but if you only water your plant once a quarter, the plant will die. And culture is that way too. It doesn't happen without conscious effort, and it takes small actions by each and every one of us every single day in your interactions with other people and as a team to really build a great culture. So I think point number one for me is that culture can't be a casualty, and it takes tender, loving care on a regular basis. Another thing I wanted to mention is that Like, yeah, great, work on culture. It's really important every day, but we're cutting budgets and we don't have a lot of spend for culture. What do we do? And in my experience, actually free and low cost and scrappy, led by team member cultural touch points are actually oftentimes even more powerful than a splashy event where you spend a bunch of money. And so I think that's a really important thing. And I'll share a couple of specific examples of things that my teams and I have done in the past. But I also wanted to point out that that creating the team bonding events or activities together, that in and of itself can be both a really great opportunity for individual people on your team to step up and provide some leadership. And also it can be a fun bonding activity in and of itself to put something together that brings people together. So as promised, a few things that I've done in past lives that I thought the audience here might be interested in. So first, a couple small things. One thing I've done is on in team stand-ups, you can actually rotate who is leading stand-ups among the team. And so at a past company, we had a different person on the squad lead stand-up every day for a week. And they would have a little gimmick or fun activity as part of stand-up really fast. A would you rather question, or once we did bingo cards where you can use a free online tool to create stand-up bingo and people can check off things that often happen in stand-up. We've also done themed backgrounds. So lots of really cheap, free, easy things that can be really fun and just bring a small squad together. We've also done speed dating, which is maybe we should have had a different name for that. But when we have new hires join the company, I've had speed dating events where you bring all the new hires together with everybody in the company and just rapid fire get to know you questions at them. Also free, really fun, a great bonding experience. Something that my husband actually just did with one of his teams is they did a cooking class where one of the team members hosted a cooking class. Everybody bought the same ingredients and they did an 1.5-hour lunch and they made homemade pasta. That's something that somebody on your team who likes to cook could do and lead for everybody. There are also lots of online games like excuse me, Among Us or Heads Up, or there are some Telestrations online games that are free, really fun to do. And then there are also some not totally free, but low cost things that I've had a lot of fun with in the past. Things like giving everybody on your team $20 to spend on Amazon to personally pick out a gift for somebody else on the team. And then you can have somebody in operations or HR maybe place those orders, and then you do an unwrapping party all together. That's been a ton of fun. And another one like that is buying craft kits and all doing the same craft together. That can be really cheap and a lot of fun as well. So I've got lots more where that came from. If anybody wants to reach out to me after the panel today, happy to share some more ideas. But free and low cost events are a really good time. And then the last thing I wanted to share is that halfway through the year and times of crisis and resetting are all great times to recenter people on mission and values and purpose, and what Wade touched on in his response earlier. That's something that if you already have in place, and a team meeting, all hands, reiterating these things can be really powerful as a cultural touch point for the whole organization. And if you don't already have them in place, it's a great time to work on that. So I think there's lots that we can do, and it's so important to do so.
That is so fun. Vicki, first of all, thank you so much for sharing such great examples that we can take and run with. On my notes page for you, I definitely wrote down culture cannot be a casualty, because that's so important and such a great reminder that bringing a team together is really going to help everyone work better together. So thank you. All right, last question for each of the panelists. Are you ready? Here we go. Life moves fast. And navigating the obstacle of the day, or like Ryan said, the crisis du jour, navigating the obstacle of the day requires constant situational awareness. What's one piece of advice you'd give to managers who want to succeed in this ever-changing environment? Wade, let's kick it off with you.
So many different ways that you can go with it, but I think what I would start with is, like, most of the time I see that ego and blind spots are the two most common things that hold people back. And sadly, the bigger either one of those things are, the more likely you are to retreat and stay in competence over exploring the growth that you need. And so this idea of being able to dig deeper and understand the guiding principles behind what you do and how you do it is really key. You need to stop, you need to reflect, you need to inspect, you need to be vulnerable. And that's hard and it requires courage. But the more that you understand and test the why behind things, the more that you will see a new truth and be able to grow through it in a very principled and sort of direct motion way. So I think that's the thing, the piece of advice is like, know that blind spots and ego are out there. And so you have to look for the growth that's out there. It's probably not going to come hit you upside the head or anything like that.
I love that. Look for the growth that's out there. Okay, Ryan, over to you. What's one piece of advice that you'd give to managers who want to succeed in this ever-changing environment?
Yeah, I think my advice is probably generically true all the time, but maybe extra important during, ever changing environment moments, which is really being mindful of the way in which you engage and what your team does and works on. I think that there's failure modes, kind of like what Wade mentioned around inertia or recency bias or loudness. Like we often work on the things that seem loudest or most important recently, or just because we keep doing what we're doing. And I think for managers, really reading the situation of individuals on their team, knowing when to move in closer to provide more direction, more short-term milestones that feel really good about making progress, and when to zoom out and remind people of higher level purpose. And it might be different for every person that's on your team, and kind of where they are and what they need in that moment. So really embracing kind of the mindfulness of, that those relationships that you have with people.
Right, because at the end of the day, it all comes down to people. It all comes
Definitely.
down to our team and our individuals. Awesome. Thanks so much, Ryan. And then finally, we're going to wrap it all up with Vicky. Vicky, what's one piece of advice you'd give to managers who want to succeed in this ever-changing environment?
I have a really tactical suggestion. So something that has been transformative for me is resetting, not just halfway through the year, but actually I block off 15 minutes at the very beginning and the very end of every day to reset my priority list and kind of prepare myself to go into the day. And I encourage my team members to do that as well. It's not just good for your sanity and your priority list, but it's also really helpful with boundaries, which are really important to maintain so you don't get totally burned out. And then at the end of the week, I actually do the very last thing I do on a Friday evening is a broader reset for the week ahead, where I identify the 3 to 5 things I need to do to win the week, the following week. And then my team members all do that as well. And we get together on Monday morning and share our win the weeks with each other, so we can stay really crisp and focused, and also have shared accountability towards those things.
Vicky, I love that. I love the tactical recommendations, the 15 minutes at the start, the 15 minutes at the end to really bookend your day. I really like to call those, as a time management coach, your startup and shutdown routines. And then you've got that weekly reset at the end of the week. So that is phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing that tactical advice. All right. Now we're going to open up the floor for Q&A. So Christy has been on the lookout for your questions in the chat, and we will get to as many as we can within the next 10 minutes. A good coach always watches the clock, so we'll make sure that we pitch these questions, these amazing questions that you've shared, over to our panelists. All right. And our first question is coming right up. Okay, I'm making sure I can find the questions. Okay, here we go. This question is for all of the panelists. And beyond encouraging your team to reset and recharge, how do you recommend making sure that they actually do it? It's one thing to encourage it, but how do you make sure that they're actually following through? And Ryan, would you like to take this one first?
Sure. I'll give you two quick things. And kind of my answer to anything that you ask me is measure it. So if you can like actually measure the time that people are taking time off and make it visible to individuals, that will certainly nudge and encourage behavior. The other thing that I really like, thinking back to Vicky's previous question about sort of offsite ideas and ways to like increase belongingness on your team, is create a budget. Like let people know that they have money that they can spend that is dedicated toward this thing. Make it very clear that there is resources behind what you want people to do. And so those are the two things I'd do.
Awesome. Vicky, what about you?
Two things that I like to do. One is when somebody's going out for more than a couple days, I work with them ahead of time to make sure that they have a plan in place. And I hold their hand through that to make sure they'll actually be able to disconnect and it won't just be wishful thinking. And then if I see them online on Slack when I know they're supposed to be out, I playfully nudge and harass them on Slack with GIFs and emojis to remind them that they're supposed to be on vacation and not working.
I love that. I could probably use some of those reminders myself sometimes. And then Wade, tell us how you make sure that your team is actually getting the reset and recharge they need.
Yeah, I love the measure it answer. I think that's really good. But if I was going to go beyond that, I would say one, I think it's really important to model it. And so if you are constantly talking about something and not doing it, I think that sends a very clear model of what you actually believe as opposed to what you're saying. And so to that point, right, find time to recharge, take time off. And it's also the little things like, when are you sending emails? Are you sending emails over the weekend, or are you saving them? I mean, even if you're writing them, send them Monday morning. Do things along those lines that clearly demonstrate that this is important for you. And then I try and make a lot of notes before I go into one-on-ones and things along those lines. And so, right, there's always a question for me to ask is, you know, what'd you do last weekend, or what are you doing to recharge? What's the latest book that you read, etc. There's always something that's my way of letting them know, right, this is really important and it's not going to go away. And so if I'm expecting what I inspect, I'm going to constantly ask lots of questions along these lines.
That's awesome, Wade. Thank you. So walk the talk and use schedule send. That's great. Okay. And this question is for Wade as well. Our next question is for Wade as well. How do you achieve a healthy balance between trust and personal connection with providing candid feedback for personal growth?
Yeah. Done well, they reinforce each other. So I don't think that there needs to be the tension there, but I get why there is a lot of tension there. There's a few things that factor into this, and I'll just try and call some of them out. Number one is oftentimes you just don't feel heard, and so you don't trust the feedback that's coming for you. And so I think it's really, really important to validate where somebody's at. Take the time to empathize with where they're at. What information do they have? What are they struggling with? Because if you can join them in that moment, they start to like, I feel seen. I feel heard. I know that you know what I'm going through. And then everything that comes after that can go a lot easier. And so start with validation. Number two, park your ego. So many times it's, let me tell you what you need to do, right? This is what's wrong with you. And this is like clearly the answer, right? Like no one wants to hear that. And matter of fact, no one's going to act on it probably because that whole point is, it's about you. It's not about them. And so park your ego, make it not about you. And then number three is I'll put it into the category of give gifts. Like constantly think about gift giving, right? It's like slide to their side of the table, like see it from their point of view, help them understand, so if you want to be a staff engineer or you want to be a VP of engineering, Like, let's go look at the top 3 VPs of engineering out there that we agree is just amazing. Now, what causally makes them great? Like, why? What are the capabilities and things that they constantly practice? Now, is there a gap, and can we see that? Oh, that's awesome, right? If we can see that, then we can think about opportunities to practice in those areas. How do we get you to declarative knowledge? And then who's a mentor and a coach that can help grow on those areas? And maybe we should assign you to a project that starts to help build out some of those things. And so if you're constantly thinking about giving gifts, you've parked your ego and it's about them, I think you will have somebody who feels like, I can trust this person because I can be vulnerable with them, and they're actually trying to help me get on the other side of that. Now, if you're trying to give feedback to somebody that's got large ego, right? Like I use this other thing about, like, do they get it? Do they want it? Can they do it? Very rarely can somebody not do it. Like, if you went through school and you've gotten into tech, right? Like, it's not an IQ thing. On the get it side of it, right? Like, it oftentimes we go through our careers and we reinforce the things that have gotten us to this degree of success without stopping and reflecting about what's needed to get to the next stage. And so sometimes you can just help people get through it along the way we were talking about it. But you have to clearly see it to figure out if you want it, because growing in some real way always requires change, which always requires courage, right? Like, you have to put yourself out there a little bit. And so there's even an equation for, is somebody going to change? And it really is the degree of dissatisfaction that you have with the way things currently are times the benefit associated with being on the other side of it, times the practicality of the next steps that you're going to take. And if all of those things put together is greater than the resistance to change, you want it. And so I think the more that you can think through where somebody's at, and is it a blind spot? That's one thing. If it's an ego, then there's a whole different way of doing it. But I think that you can give gifts for people who have blind spots, and you can help them move through it. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer.
That was great, though. We definitely appreciate the long-winded, detailed answers, because it just really just gives us so much inspiration and a jumping off point. So thanks, Wade. All right. Excuse me. Next question. Our next question is just about to pop up on the screen. All right, here we go. How can you ensure that your team is taking feedback positively and acting on the mentioned points? So this is sort of a jumping off point from what Wade was just talking about. But I'm going to pitch this one over to Ryan first. How can you ensure that your team is taking the feedback positively and acting on the mentioned points?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I'll definitely draft off of Wade's last response here. My answers are maybe like tactical and kind of systems organizationally oriented, which is, one, I think it's super useful to establish like common vernacular or common cultural norms within your organization. So at Asana, for example, we use a lot of this like do, try, consider framework. So you'll see a lot of people giving feedback in very predictable patterns. Like, do this means take action. Try this means at least try it, but maybe you won't go with my approach. And consider is very lightweight. Just think about this. And just those like sentence starters that are predictable and people understand how to incorporate them really, really helps. You have to do less dancing to finesse your response so that it's palatable to the person receiving it if you just use this common framework. My other tactical advice is perfect kickoff meetings. And so like in your first interaction, whether it's with a new report or if you're kicking off a new work stream, make sure you take time and effort to build rapport and build trust, like have a great icebreaker to start things off. Make sure you set on the table like common goals for everyone. It makes it so much easier to give people like critical, candid feedback when you're starting from a point of understanding and something about people as people and not just as like teammates.
Awesome. I love that. Do, try, consider, and having that shared vernacular, that shared language, that's fantastic because it gets everyone on the same page. Okay, let's see. Our next question coming right up is about to pop up on the screen. The suspense is killing me. Here we go. All right. And this is going to be for each of you. This is going to be our last question before we head into the next phase of our agenda. And this question is going to be for all of you. And it's, which team activities can you recommend which help to reset and recharge as a team? Now, we've had some really fun chatter in the comments with others sharing their examples. Vicky, you shared some really awesome examples. And so I would love to hear from each of you. And we'll start this one with Vicky. Which team activities can you recommend that can help reset and recharge as a team? Maybe there are some that you haven't shared with us yet.
Yeah, I'll think of a couple more. In addition to everything that I already mentioned, if you are in person, if you are co-located enough that you can get together in person, especially during the summertime, barbecue, maybe with a pickup volleyball game, that sort of thing is super fun, and also creates an opportunity for folks if they'd like to maybe bring family members, which is another really nice way to bond and get together. As far as some of the online games that are more remote friendly, one of the ones I mentioned earlier was Telestrations. I don't know if anybody has played this game before, but it's basically you pass, first person gets a word and they draw it, and then they pass that drawing to the next person who has to guess what the drawing is. And then the person after that draws what the guess was, and it goes all around. Telestrations is the board game version. I forget, there's a free online version that you can play. And hilarity ensues when you play this game, especially because it's very difficult to draw things in a digital format. And actually, if you don't have art skills, all the better. So that's been one of my all-time favorites.
I love it. That actually reminds me a little bit of battle decks, where you have each team creates a PowerPoint, but the other team doesn't know what is on the slides, and they have to present this PowerPoint they've never seen before. I would like to do that for a future birthday party, just putting it out there. I think that would be so much fun. Okay, Ryan, can you tell us some of the activities or ideas for resetting and recharging your team?
Yeah, I love activities where people are solving a common problem together, where you actually work on your sort of collaborative skills, and it can be something completely artificial. The kind of classic examples like escape room scenarios where you're solving a set of puzzles together as a group. But in the past, I've also done things that are like cake decorating competitions, like give a set of people their own individual cakes and some frosting, let them be creative and see what they can do. My other favorite is a guac off, which is like groups of people get together to make guacamole of their own flavor. And these are just like super fun, but I love the competitive edge where people are sort of working together as a team toward a common purpose.
Definitely. It reminds me of making towers out of marshmallows and toothpicks, just because you have to kind of work together to figure out how you're going to make this happen. Even better if you can't talk while you're doing it. So just throwing that out there. And then Wade, bring us on home, share some of your favorite activities to reset and recharge with your team.
I have found much like the solving a problem together, right? Like I love getting together for hackathons, right? The idea of finding something that is connected to why we're all at a common place, and giving people free reign to go hack something together over a couple of days. It's just like it recharges the batteries in a very amazing way. I also think it is important to get back. I mean, I like that we're starting to open up a little again. And so getting people together, like there's something magical about putting a dry erase marker to a whiteboard. I don't know what the magical properties are, but I love being able to ideate with others. And then there's just fun things that you can do along the lines. If you are able to build a high trust environment, some of my favorite things have been like give your weekly win imitating the person to your right. Oh, and it's just so fun to see how, and you have to have high trust, right? Because that could, and everybody has to be engaged in the right way. But oh my gosh, it was so fun. And then everybody one time had to show their favorite dance move, and there's people like me that should not be doing that. And so it was just energizing to see how vulnerable people were in that moment and willing to actually engage along those lines.
Mm-hmm. I love that. We can create vulnerability. We can create stronger teams through all kinds of methods, whether we are building Legos together, having an amazing whiteboard session, or showing off our best dance moves. Thank you all so much. And I'm talking to you, audience. Thank you all so much for the amazing and thoughtful questions. I really wish we would have had time to get to all of them, but we got to watch the clock. And thank you especially to our amazing expert panelists for being so generous with their time and with their experience today. So I want to know, let me know in the chat which area you are most looking forward to impacting: priorities, operations, or culture. Let us know in the chat, priorities, operations, or culture, which you are most excited to impact. All right. If you're not sticking around for the breakout sessions, I want to thank you so much for being a part of today. And I hope you're walking away feeling inspired and ready to take the next steps to recharge your winning team. And if you are hanging out to huddle up, you are in for a serious dose of motivation, inspiration, and collaboration. In just a moment, you'll be able to join your breakout session led by one of 6 Clockwise coaches. This is your chance to take what you've learned, talk through ideas, and begin to crystallize your next steps. Now, if you have any tech issues, if you're heading over to your breakout room, there is a help desk session that you can jump into, and Allie will be there to help you out and get to the right spot. Then we'll meet back here at the main stage at 11:45 Pacific to finalize our next steps, build in some accountability, and celebrate our success before we ready break. All right, head over to your breakout sessions and go team.